So I'm here at the hospital. It's barely 8, almost 8, and they just started my Pitocin at 2 units. So they're starting pretty soon. So I think that we'll definitely have a baby by 5, 6 o'clock. He tried to break my water, but it did not work because I think I was too high up. So I'm still 3 and 50 centimeters effaced. So I think it's gonna try to get me to contract some more, get that epidural, and then go from there to break the water, and then hopefully have a baby soon. So, um, yeah, sorry. So we're just playing the waiting game.
Hey guys, all right, so I'm just here to talk about my labor and delivery story, and of course, the 2 week postpartum update. So I'm approximately 2 weeks out. I had Landon on June 17th. Here he is. I had him on June 17th, I think at about 7:30 p.m. So I just want to tell you guys what went down with my labor and all that good stuff, because as you guys saw, I did stop the vlog early because things got kind of not complicated, but they did, and it was just like a lot going on. So I'm going to go ahead and get into that story right now. So first things first, where I stopped off, as you guys can see, so the midwife's roof failed, of course, so I was already getting induced the next day. So we arrived at Holy Cross at around 6:15. We're supposed to be there at 6. We're like 15 minutes late. So we checked in, all that good stuff. I was in my room by like 6:30, so they got us back there pretty fast. I had my IV in my hand, and the nurse had already done my intake by 7 o'clock. Mind you, nurses do their change of shift at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. So for her to have done all that before her change of shift was amazing. So had my IV and did my intake, changed clothes, all that, went over the process. I saw my doctor at around 7:30, and just started with the game plan then. So he came in at 7:30 and he tried to break my water, but it did not work because I was really tense, and all that good stuff. It's not really comfortable when somebody tries to shove their whole hand up your whole vaginal canal to try to break the water. It's very uncomfortable and it's very painful. I'm very close to my doctor, and it wasn't comfortable. So long story short, they started the Pitocin. Pitocin is a medicine used to induce labor. It starts contractions. It does all that good stuff. Okay, baby. So gave him the Pitocin at a low dose. He came back. I still wasn't in any pain. I have a high threshold for pain. So for me, I didn't feel any of the contractions. So I was still too tense for him because he wanted me to get epidural so I could just be relaxed. And so he can go and do what he needed to do without any complications. So bumped up the Pitocin. I finally started feeling the contractions. So probably around 11 or 12, I had got my epidural early in the game, but they suspected that I was going to have landed around 1 or 2 o'clock, according to my doctor. He was just like moving. I think I was his only patient that was delivering that day. Sure, he had patients like who were already delivered, but I was his only like delivery that day. So he was just like waiting for me to get this ball game started. So yeah, so got my epidural around 11. He came back. He did break my water then, and once he like put a hole in it, it just started leaking and just coming out. So of course the contractions got stronger. And then at that point I was like fully dilated, so I thought, okay, it's time to push this baby out. So Landon was still very high for me to be like completely dilated by like 12, 1 o'clock ish or whatever. So we tried the banana ball, we tried positioning, we tried to sit like in the throne position. They tried almost everything to get him to come down. I was pushing, just like I said, pretty much everything, and he would not come down. So probably around 4:35, he came in and said, "Hey, you've been pushing for a while now, blah blah blah. I don't want to do it, but cord might be around the baby somehow. Something could be up. What do you think about a C-section?" So of course, with my last two births, I did vaginal. I didn't have a C-section, no complications. So I was a little apprehensive, but at this point, I was exhausted. I've been there since 6. It was now 4:30. I've been pushing since about 12, so about 4 hours. I know some people push for hours and hours, and I just assumed that would happen to me. But my doctor is very cautious, especially with my history. I guess he didn't want to take any chances with the baby. I forgot to mention when he broke my water, he would put something in there so he could hear the baby's heartbeat that way so it could be more accurate. And which is how they found out too. Every time I pushed, the baby would decelerate. Like his heart rate would go down, which happens with all my babies before I give birth. So long story short, about 5:36, I had signed a paper basically saying that I was going to get a C-section. And for me, I noticed too, every time that I pushed, I felt my baby go like up more. He was up and he was just on one side of me. So we had to wait for the room for the C-section because they had an emergency that came in. So we waited. My mom came, my dad came. Then about 7 o'clock, we were ready to get geared up and ready for my C-section. Now initially I wasn't scared, but as soon as like it was game time and they were willing me in to get the C-section, I went in the room. I was terrified. So if you've never had a C-section before, a cesarean section, the room for a C-section is freezing. It's definitely like 20 degrees. And of course, when you're doing anything like medical and stuff like that, it has to be sterilized. So anything with heat attracts bacteria and things like that. So I get why they keep it clean. But it was freezing in there. I'm so sorry I forgot to mention too that the medicine when I got the epidural towards the end when they kept giving me more and preparing me for the C-section, I began throwing up. I think the medicine was just way too strong for me, but they had to make sure I was like numb completely, but it was making me like sick. So I threw up 3 times before I had the C-section. I was nervous because right before I had the C-section, she had gave me more medicine. And I was like, yo, every time I get medicine, I throw up. I don't want to be in this room where I can't feel my bottoms. I can't move. I'm like, strapped to like a gurney basically. And I have to throw up. I don't want to throw up and choke on my throw up. So I'm just like, all this stuff's just going in my head. So long story short, I get in the room or whatever. My doctor's there. They have one resident and one student who are in there as well. All the nurses were so nice to me and stuff like that, but I was just really nervous. So I was numbed up, of course, gave me oxygen, told me I couldn't move. Lance was the last person to come in there. And once he came in there and they started the whole procedure, the bad thing about C-section for me was I can hear all the equipment. I can smell the burning of my skin. I was freezing. I could see everything that was going on. But I could not feel it, and I didn't want to feel it, but it's kind of like I felt like I didn't have control over myself. Like if something happened, or God forbid, I wouldn't be able to say anything, I wouldn't be able to move. I was just like there. So like about 20-30 minutes later, Landon finally came. And once he came or whatever, I remember feeling completely out of it after that. I was just like exhausted, like done. But he finally came. So the doctor let me see him first, and then he passed him on to Lance to hold. And then after that, they got him cleaned up, and they weighed him, and everybody was like waiting and anticipating the weights. Because I've had 4-pound babies. This is like my first normal sized baby. So they were trying to see how close ultrasound was, and he came at 7 pounds 6.5 ounces. So my last ultrasound that I had a week before that, 38 weeks, he was 7.5 pounds. So he was about that. So like 2 ounces off, which is also why I feel like that the measurements were off. I don't ever feel like I was ahead. I just kind of feel like he was bigger. Because I was supposed to be, when I got induced, my original due date, I was like 38 weeks and 2 days or something. So yeah, because I got induced at exactly 39 weeks. And my original due date was like 5 days behind. So yeah, I was like 38 weeks and 2 days or something. That's what I really feel like I was when I got induced. And it also matched the measurement of my previous ultrasound, would have been like 7.5 pounds. But anyway, he was fine. Lance held him. After that, it took longer for them to stitch me up than it did to actually pull him out. So they stitched me up. wheeled me back in the room, and I was just like freezing. I remember that the nurse put him on me, and I was scared because I was so cold. I was like, yeah, I don't want to drop him because I was like shaking. I was like numb. But long story short, went back in the room. I nursed him, latched like a pro, and yeah, we stayed in the hospital for 4 days, the longest 4 days ever. I just had to get used to everything. This is my first time to like exclusively pumping and stuff like that. So that was it was good for me to be able to do that and to have my baby in the room with me because I've always had NICU babies. I've always like been in the room by myself and had to walk down and see them. So this was like a good experience for me. And then of course Leah came and saw him and she was so excited. So yeah, so that's like my summary of my birth story wrapped into one. So here we are today, 2 weeks later. Right now he's about 8.5 pounds. So when he left the hospital, he had lost some ounces. He was 7 pounds 3 ounces, and then at his last weigh-in, he was 8 pounds 4 ounces. So he gained a pound and an ounce, all from breast milk. He's exclusively breastfed and he drinks express milk as well. He eats about every 2.5 3 hours, and lately he's been eating 2 hours. So he's just been gobbling up milk. He wakes up every from 2.5 hours. The longest he'll go is 4 hours. But at that time, we'll kind of wake him up and kind of feed him just to like keep him on a schedule. It's been hard though, you know. C-section, you can't. I was just able to go down the steps. I live on the third floor, so that's been hard for me. Just being in the house, I'm used to going on doing what I want and working, so that's been hard. But I appreciate my time that I had with him because I was working so hard before I had him. I was working like 95 to 100 hours a week. So it's good to have this time, this downtime. Um, but I do get bored occasionally. They don't circumcise at Holy Cross either, so his circumcision is next Thursday. I'm really like not nervous for him, but I feel bad for him because I just feel like they should have done it when he was born, but you can't help hospital policy, of course. What else? Oh, C-section healing, what people don't talk about. So the worst thing about healing from a C-section is you can't eat until you fart in the hospital. Once you do fart and you go home, it took me like I just had a normal. I'm sorry, TMI number 2. It took forever to do that. Coughing is horrible. The bleeding is different than a vaginal. Like if I had a vaginal delivery, I think with all my other babies, I would have stopped bleeding by now. With the C-section, the bleeding is so consistent. It's just irritating because I'll take my pad off thinking I'm done, then I'll bleed the next day. So it's like I've been bleeding on and off for 2 weeks. Your stomach does stay like a little bit puffier versus having a vaginal delivery. My stomach just started to kind of go down. But it's slower than all my other vaginal deliveries that I've had as far as like my stomach. What else about a C-section? Oh yeah, just being cold. Like whenever I get cold now, like the air is slow in my house, I'll feel that feeling that I had with a C-section again. It'll just be like this frigid feeling. It just feel like it's cold. Like it's not a good feeling. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So he's doing really, really good. I'm gonna show you guys. Show you guys a quick look at him. I'm sorry, baby. This is Landon. This is my chocolate bear. Say hi. He's such a Gemini guy. But yeah, we're just really blessed. We just talk about all the time how tired we are, but we're really blessed to have the both of them. We're really blessed to experience this again. I'm really happy to have like a term healthy baby. You know, I still think about things. I'm still nervous, but I'm just taking it day by day, being positive and just knowing that, you know, everything will be fine and he'll be okay. So I'm just here being a mom again, guys. So I'm gonna try to do updates with him as well as myself. As far as my post body, luckily I have no stretch marks. When I went to the doctor for my post-op appointment, I was 138 pounds. So I went in weighing 162. So I'm almost down to my pre-pregnancy weight of 132. So that's good. So yeah, I'm just going to keep vlogging, doing mom stuff. And hope you guys can keep up, continue to give me feedback, continue to tell me what I should do, continue to encourage me. And we'll see you later. Thanks for watching.